So I'm back in my hotel room. It is 11:08 Central Time, and I was dancing my feet off. Just came off this incredible dance party at the Next Step Summit. And prior to that, I spoke in front of 200 plus leaders, where it was more like there's 200 seats. People came that didn't sign up for it, sitting on the floor. People were turned away. Like, the majority of the staff were in my room. They had to close the doors and turn people away, which I am in complete disbelief in. And there was leaders from Coca-Cola, Accenture, Albertsons, Fairlife, Fetch, Hallmark, Killanova, Keurig Dr. Pepper, Nestle, Procter & Gamble, SC Johnson, Target, Walmart, and more companies that I am missing is just in the top of my head. I'm tired. I did not prep for doing this podcast interview. In fact, I did know I wanted to do this podcast interview. I actually shared this with my podcast manager, like, hey, I want to do an interview after my talk. Can you do a fast turnaround? I know it doesn't necessarily meet your timeline. And it was like, yeah, that's completely fine. Just because I know my audience kind of loves seeing it when it happens, the time it happens.
Hey, I'm Elaine Lucartas. I'm a business and career coach for women of color and allies. LA Weekly awarded me the #1 thought leader, and Apple News named me one of the top 5 business coaches. Done doing the most as a woman of color or ally, and you want to create your own definition of success and happiness? Well, grab your coffee, tea, or boba, and let's do some business and career real talk.
I'm still in an adrenaline rush. And the talk was on owning the room you're in, executive presence. And let me tell you, this talk, I prepared for it. How I got this talk is I met with Jackie, who is one of the coordinators we're in this coaching certification program. And I shared this at my talk. Like, she wanted support in something. And then I gave her support. She's like, what do you want? And she was like, you know what? I want to do more talks on executive presence. She's like, you should come talk. And I was there talking. And mind you, I was joking around saying like, wow, am I Beyonce here? Like, this is like, people are sitting on the floor, people being turned away. And what I want to talk about is how I prepared for it. I think so often people think, oh, that person just has it together. They have executive presence. No, I prepared for it. And for those of you that are probably listening that came to my talk, and like, I want the recording for it. Don't worry, my team is going to be putting that together. But just give them time, because as you know, if you attended the talk, there was problems and issues. Speaking of which, on top of being a filled room, people having to turn around, the speakers were making this horrible, like, screeching sound. And I was trying to find a place to stand where it would stop. And finally, at the end, it's like, oh, like when we were doing Q&A, I finally turned off the mic and there was a sigh of relief, but I had to yell, kind of beating myself over my head where I should have done that earlier. But you know what? What's interesting is having that happen and that problem actually displayed executive presence, seeing what could happen when a problem happens and what to do about it. It's like, okay, you know, we're talking about executive presence. I want your feedback. Where should I stand? Here, 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 thumbs up. Okay, great. I'll continue talking. And because I turned off my mic when we were doing Q&A coaching, you know, I was coaching people, come up to the room, project out. I need you to speak louder. And I didn't even realize I was doing it. It was just so natural. And by the way, what's interesting is in this podcast, I usually have bullet points of what I'm going to say. I have no bullet points. Think of this like a late night Zanga or live journal entry, except it is audio because it truly is. I am sit up by my bed because there's soundproof walls. I feel bad because the walls are pretty sensitive. The reason why I'm sitting by my bed is because it's more soundproof as opposed to sitting on my desk. It's not a cute angle. I don't think I'll put this in video. Maybe I will, just because it shows the realness. So anyways, I'm here to talk about how I prepared for this talk. So the Next Up Summit, which is a great organization for women moving up in corporate America who are leaders, and they provide a lot of training, a lot of experience in events, and there's chapters throughout the country. So I'll put the Next Up website in the show notes so you can check it out. And I knew that there were going to be these incredible leaders, and I knew that I didn't know it all, but what I can do is ask for feedback. So I sent out an anonymous survey because I wanted people to feel safe, asking them, hey, like, what's your challenge? What's your goal? What do you want to take out of it when it comes to executive presence? Not all 200 people responded, which was completely fine. I knew that. But about, I want to say it's late right now, 39 people responded. In addition to that, because I got the list, there is about 200 people on the list. I personally added, messaged everybody on LinkedIn saying, I'm so excited to see you. For the people who corresponded, I still asked, hey, what's your biggest challenge on executive presence? I would love to know because I'm preparing for my talk. And I received information. I think so often when we're preparing for a big talk, for a big meeting, it's like, okay, I know it all. But like, do you have all the data, all the information to prepare for it? Are you asking people for feedback? I asked for people. Honestly, I had an intention. I'm going to find the script that I have. Could probably hear papers moving up in 15 pages in my script. People at my talk approached me and like, oh my gosh, you really exuded executive presence. And you were just like, standoffish, but you're really approachable. And in the top of my script that I printed out, it says, I will be funny, approachable, and executive. That was my goal for the talk. Funny, approachable, and executive. And someone came up to me after the talk. A lot of people came up to the talk, said, oh my God, you were great. Like, that was the best talk. I had so many people come up to me. And, it's a networking event. So when I met with people, I'm like, okay, what company you're in? And I'm one of the few that has my own business. Oh, I'm the speaker that talked about owning the room you're in, executive presence. You're like, you are the talk. It was like, you are the person. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe people are talking about it. And even saying that, it's like, okay, I'm having imposter syndrome about it. Well, not necessarily imposter syndrome, but that's what I actually prepared for. I wanted people to talk about it and not talk about it because it's me, because I know my shit. Like, I've been doing this for 7+ years. I shared at the talk, I was a director at 22, managing 5 men. I worked in American politics, local, state, and national. I've been bullied, unfortunately. Went into the nonprofit sector, had an incredible ally, had an incredible team, had to navigate how to be assertive, unlearn things the way I learned things as a first-gen immigrant. You need to pay attention to your elders, which you do. And it's like, when you're a first-gen immigrant, you listen to what's needed to succeed, but you never ask the question, what do I want? How do I want to show up? And how I wanted to show up is I will be funny, approachable, and executive. And I actually want you to think about that whenever you have a meeting, whenever you have a talk. How do you want to show up? What is your goal? What's the other person's goal? What do you want to get out of it? That's exactly what I did in coaching.
Legacy leader, I know what you're thinking. Elaine, you have such good stuff here. I want more. So if you want more tips and advice for your business, career, and life, sign up for my Gifts and Gifts newsletter at elainelu.com/join. That's JOIN. And here's 3 things you'll get when you join, because I'm like Santa Claus. I love giving. Number 1, funny gifts, because who doesn't love memes and pop culture references? This newsletter is so fetch. Number 2, receive actionable gifts. That's business, career, and life tips that you can start doing today. Third, the gift of me. Not only to get my wins, but also my failures, my reflections. My Gifts and Gifts newsletter is like an up-to-date diary. Think Zanga or Life Journal for my fellow millennials, where I share vulnerable stories, relatable mistakes, and important life tips like what to watch on Netflix, like when's the next Bridgerton season. So if you're ready for those fun gifts and actionable gifts to create a more sustainable life, then join my newsletter at elainelu.com/join. That's JOIN. All right, let's get back to the episode.
So the problem that happened, oh my gosh, the sound was so bad. You know, that like loud screeching sound if you're standing in a certain place, it just had problems. Unfortunately, the tech people couldn't fix it. And eventually took a while for me to like, okay, let me turn it off. So I figured it out. Like, I'll just turn it off and I'll just yell. I'm surprised I still have a voice. I might not have a voice tomorrow, but I will say I did go to a VIP reception. I was networking with people and people couldn't hear me because I don't think I was talking loud enough. I'd say, I'm sorry, I was yelling at my talk because the speakers went off and I finally had to turn it off. What I didn't expect. So the talk was about an hour and 15 minutes. I spoke for a full hour. And then there was 15 minutes left, which I didn't realize, but I thought, oh my gosh, I only went 30 minutes. There was no person to give me a timer, which I wish I had. Like, okay, you have 15 minutes left or 10 minutes. I didn't know. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? You know what? I'm just going to coach. So I was on my feet. I actually did not prepare. I am being honest. I did not prepare to coach. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be giving free coaching. So we did Q&A coaching. I know some people left because the sound was so bad. But for the majority of people stayed. People were even sitting, asking questions, coaching. I got to coach people, but more importantly, people received feedback from others. So it was interesting, you know, and people didn't even realize that I didn't plan to have time for Q&A coaching. And what is interesting afterwards, people came up to me. A lot of people came up to me and said, I really appreciate that Q&A coaching. That was not planned, by the way. I ended a little early. And sure, I stumbled some words when I was going through my presentation, but you don't want to like focus so much on that. One person came up to me after the talk and shared, you know, how to get really overwhelmed. Like, it was so great seeing you talk. How do you not focus on that? Like, I have imposter syndrome. And it goes back to, well, what's your goal? What's that value add that you provide? And I know value add that I provide. It's because I have coached, I think, with looking at my numbers, because I have courses with LinkedIn, Penn, Brown, John Hopkins. I think it's like 7,000? No, it's 8,000, 7,000 or 8,000 people now in 58 different countries. So, no, like I said, did not script it. I'm just sharing reflections of my talk that I really prepared. Like I said, I asked for feedback. I wrote a word-to-word script, and I actually presented my own IP, talking about conscious conversations and a heart-shaped model that I created, my 7 years of experience coaching and my years before that. And everyone really resonated. I actually received good feedback. I love that heart-shaped model. I love that it is. And it was my first time presenting it into a big crowd, and it was me testing and asking for feedback. That's another thing. People think all the time, oh, you have it together. No, I'm constantly asking feedback and improving it and observing it. So for example, I didn't plan the Q&A coaching at the end. People loved it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this moving forward. People really loved it. I'm going to keep this in the future. People love that other people got to share feedback on that. Okay, I'll continue doing that. What I learned is with sound, even though we tested it in the back room, did not test it while we were walking on the stage. Did not test it with the rooms next to me. That's not my job, I know, but I know that's necessarily the tech team's job, but I know that I will advocate for that. And if all goes wrong, I will yell and making sure that I take care of my throat, drink lots of water if I have to turn off the mic. That is all feedback. There was things that went wrong in my talk, yet despite it going wrong, I have had CEOs, VPs, directors come up to me if they came to my talk, telling me that was an incredible talk. Thank you. Like, I actually have a plan to implement, or that was the best talk. And even the people who I met with that didn't come to my talk heard so many great things. But that is because I prepared, asked for feedback, wrote the script, practiced it in my heels, practiced the movements I was doing with my body. And I know I said all that, but even like mentally what I wanted, wrote an affirmation, I'll be funny, approachable, and executive. And going back to that heart-shaped model, my conscious conversations, what is your passion? And it's interesting because at the end of the talk, I talked about the reason why I do what I do is because two things. One, my grandmas, they passed away within a year of one another. I didn't learn about, they raised me while my parents went to work, but I learned about how they both had their own businesses. One of them did hair, the other one rolled up tobacco leaves, cigarettes in Philippines, but they couldn't continue doing it. And I understand the privilege I have, the choice I have. And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here. And the best compliment I receive from my own clients isn't just the, oh, Elaine, I got the new VP role. Oh my God, I have this job that's giving me 200, 300K. Or I'm able to advocate for myself. I love it when I meet a client for the first time and they look at me whether in person or Zoom. It's so nice to see someone who looks like me. And that's the best compliment because I give them hope and let them know that it is possible. So that is my late night talk. If this is live journalism live, let me know if I should do more of this. So if you like this, and if you haven't yet, join my newsletter where I give fun gifts, free tips and advice. I'm real and raw there. So that's elainelou.com/join. That's ELAINELOU.com/join. And if you want to be coached by me to create a more sustainable career in life that's authentic to you, then schedule a complimentary coaching call with me at elainelou.com/call. That's ELAINELOU.com/call. All right. I am tired. It's 11:26. I think that's probably my quickest podcast episode, but your girl is tired. Let me know what you took away from this episode. Feel free to message me on LinkedIn. I'll add my LinkedIn here, or message me in my email newsletters. All right. Good night, and thanks for listening to my live journalism live on a podcast.